So we speak of a country. We speak of a country who has been growing so much in the last 10 years that they have carried 3 times in 10 years passengers. So you can see that this country is as big as Europe. And when we speak of Brazil, because it is the country, we speak of domestic segments and flights to operate, basically for the World Cup. But when we think of linking 2 cities in Brazil, we can think of linking Reykjavik with Athens. So it's a big country, we are sure of that. But it's a country which is diverted in terms of population, with heavy people living around the south and empty spaces in the north. And I found, in order to introduce this country and the subject of the matter, I found a map where you have all the provinces, states of Brazil and the size of the country that they are representing. And you can see that Sao Paulo only is about the size in terms of population of Argentina. So it's a challenge for Brazil to link very large distances with populations which are diverse. And in this case, you can see that in the Uruguay region, which is the area of Amazonas, where you have Manaus, you have very few population compared to the other places where the World Cup takes place. We speak of sports and we speak of soccer. By far, soccer is considered as the most popular sport in the world, according to a poll which has been widespread within the world. And you can see that almost 1 person out of 4 spontaneously consider that soccer is the most popular sport in the world. By far, you can see that the English the American are very well represented. And for us, the French, we always think that the rugby is important, but it's not. It's the last one on the 10th. So we speak of really a big issue. We speak of a big country. We speak of the national football, who won in 1958 against Sweden. In 1962 against the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia at that time. 1970 against Italy, again against Italy in 1994, and mesdames et messieurs, against Germany in 2002. So I wish Brazil the best success, but you will not be the only one. And in any case, the challenge today is just to solve the question, how can we manage to organize the World Cup in Brazil, such a big country, with such big distances and so diverse population. So we will be able to welcome now Eduardo Sanovicz, the president of the ABEAR, the Brazilian Airline Association. So please welcome Eduardo Sanovicz.
Hello? Are you listening? Yeah. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And to go straight to the point, I think that the question you want to make, and I will answer prior, is that all of your countries are allowed to be in Brazil and to be the second team in the finals. Well, thank you all for coming. And I have 30 minutes. I'll try to be the most specific, and I have only time to give you an overview as a country as big as my country and with challenges as big as the country itself. We have been working a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. You saw some pictures. I will show you a little bit more. But what I think is that we are achieving a very interesting moment and a very interesting environment in our country in order to receive you all, to receive your companies, to receive all the wishes and all the plans that you might be developing, not only for the World Cup, but for the country itself. I used to consider and I used to think about not only the World Cup, but at the World Cup and the Olympics as a theme and a pretext. As a theme to organize the entire country to some goals related with infrastructure, mobility, and the legacy of the games itself. And a pretext that allowed the country to focus and to direct some investments and to surpass some challenges that have been dancing around the country for the last 50 or 60 years. Well, just to give you this idea, ABEAR was founded 2 years ago in order to deal with the growing of aviation in our country. The founder companies are these 5 ones listed on the top. Now Trip and Azul are just one company, so we have 4 main companies traveling domestic in Brazil. TAM and Go are flying international. And we have these 2 new members, TAM Cargo, which was created after the joining before LAM and TAM. And TAP Air Portugal is an associated member. We represent almost 100% of Brazilian market, and with these main numbers you can see. The three challenges that we have to deal on our day-by-day business is about competitiveness, sustainability, and people. Competitiveness, and I will explain you in a few seconds what it's all about, is because we have to deal with some prices structure, mainly about fuel, ADF, that are quite hard if you compare with European prices and US prices. Sustainability, because as you know, Brazil has a very big and important program related with renewable fuels, and we are involved up to our necks to find, in order to, with the researchers at the university and academic research institutes, to find a way to use renewable fuel, jet fuel, in our airlines. And people, because the development that we just saw in terms of figures of numbers of people that we had been traveling from one city to the other, and the size of our market demands an enormous amount of professionals in different fields of our business. The numbers, to give you an idea, we are generating now more than 1 million jobs. We add 30 billion US to our GDP. We pay this amount of taxes, and we are involved in this big commercial trade. Aviation, including, has another importance in Brazil. A lot of people use, especially journalists, they used to be concerned with passengers, but we have to deal with cargo. In our country, about 0.2% of the volume of what get in and get out of the country goes by air, but it represents more than 10% of Brazilian Brazilian turnover in trade, which is about 500 billion US dollars. Well, the evolution of our economy since the year 2002, and the year 2002 is a landmark for us because it's the year that we moved from a 100% regulated market to an environment when you can when the companies, the airlines, can fix the prices by their own. Since the reptiles were flying till 2002, the price of the airfares in Brazil were fixed by the government. In 2002, 14 years after the democratic constitution of 1988, Brazil finally moved to an environment that is absolutely like all of you have in your countries. And as a result of one thing more, that was the enormous economic development we had been facing. We tripled the market. This is ICAO data from 2012. This growth is explained because the average of the prices fell down, but of course the income grew up. When one line crossed to the other, you had the explosion of the market. This is how our population had been flying. You see that 10 years ago we had 0.18 flight per person, and now we are 0.51 flight per person. And imagine that we still can, and we are absolutely convinced about that in 2020 we can have 200 million people flying in our country, domestic market. So this is really an opportunity, and an important opportunity, and we have to face what we need to do that. These are the prices, especially talking about the World Cup. In last November, a few weeks ago, we asked for our National Aviation Authority the authorization to organize the necessary extra flights to organize the World Cup network. Well, prior to these flights were authorized, there were a lot of concerns about prices, because people used to get in the systems in the internet and to see the price of the flight from, I don't know, Sao Paulo to Rio in the day X or the day Y, previews, or during the day of one of the games. And the prices were very high. Of course they were, because a lot of seats were previously booked by tour operators from all over the world, and it's normal, they had to do that. Or the organizers of the packages had to do that. Well, we requested the new network. ANAC authorized us to have 1,973 new flights during the games. We are going to a second turn of discussion, and probably there are going to be 2,050, 2,100 extra flights. And the prices fell down dramatically. If any one of you get in the internet and try to find the prices, you'll see that you can fly from Sao Paulo to Rio in the day of one of the games for less than $100. So it's okay. And two companies fixed a top price for the tickets, and they, as a marketing strategy, they assume that no one will pay more than 900 reais, which is about $400 for a leg in any route. And you see, when I show you the maps, that one leg of the route can be easily Lisbon to Moscow, flying inside the country without leaving the country itself. This is how prices had behaved from 2002 to 2003 in average, and you see how they went down. If you, coming back to the other issue, if you consider the inclusion of millions and millions of inhabitants as consumers, as citizens in the market, what we see in Brazil in a day-by-day, in a daily job in the airports, is that what we call the new consumers, they left the bus and they now are flying. And it means if you are a person who has 2 weeks of vacation to go from the city you work to the city your parents live, sometimes it means to change 5 days traveling by bus for 3 or 4 hours flying. So imagine that from 30, we came up to 100 million people flying. So that's why aviation became a popular issue in our country. 15, 20 years ago, it was something related with a very small part of the population, and now it's something very, very, very popular. There are a lot of seats being there. We have to face now, of course, the needs and requests of consumers in a level that we had never faced before, and this is one of our big challenges. You know, we have, of course, a decrease of comments and people requesting issues, but we still have a long way to go. And this is how we face and how we see, how we forecast, the potential of the market for the next 8 years. We are able to go from 100 to 200 million passengers. Well, these are the good news. This is the good side and the full part of the glass. But we have challenges, and we must face the challenges properly. Generation of jobs. You know, we have a lot of jobs to generate, not only for Brazilians, but for people from all over the world. We are well known. This is one of our most, I think, our best active, that we are known as a country that loves to receive people from all over the world. You can come, you can stay, you can live, you can get married, you can have your business, your kids, and you will be more than welcome. You know, I used to explain when I'm traveling abroad that sometimes people become disappointed when they see, oh, there's the Brazilian guy coming, and I show up and say, no, people look at me and say, well, explain. You know, and I love to tell our own history. You know, I am Brazilian. My father and my mother were born in Brazil, but I am a descendant of Polish and Russian Jews that arrived in Brazil in the beginning of the 20th century. And my wife, which is here, she's a descendant of Portuguese. She was born in Brazil, and they are Catholics. And we got married, and we have 2 kids. How could you define my kids? Only as Brazilians, you know. And that's one of the best and the most interesting thing we have in our country. So, challenge number 1: there's space for people, space for investment. And our challenge is how to prepare everybody. We have to prepare and to train. And not only for the next 3 months, because we're going to receive more than 600,000 tourists from all over the world speaking 12, 15 different languages. And this is the first step of a very big highway. Second, to contribute to the GDP with this enormous amount of money, it's necessary to organize and to plan and to put forward a very huge investment. First of all, facing this challenge. As Gil just mentioned, Brazilian population is highly concentrated in the southeast area, that blue color you can see on the map. And these blue areas concentrate almost 75% of the traffic and the passengers. You know. And why it happens? Because of our economical history. You know, unfortunately, I have no time to explain you everything, but imagine that the different kinds of production and the different moments of our history had different principal ways to be there. So in the 4 centuries ago, we were exporting sugar cane. Then we began to export coffee. Then we turned into this and that. After, in the end of the game, the industrial areas are concentrated in Sao Paulo and then a little bit more far away. And only 10 to 12 years ago, Brazil began to generate, as a consequence of the economic model that was put forward in the beginning of the last decade, began to generate new centers of economical development. And I would say there are this a little bit stronger green areas you can see. So if you look to the World Cup headquarters, there are 12 cities spread out around the country, in the blue areas and in the green areas. So second challenge is with infrastructure and the airports, because a lot of them are at the top, are full. Well, what we had, 3 main airports had been conceded to private operators last year, which are Guarulhos in Sao Paulo, it's the main one. Then Viracopos in Campinas, in the state of Sao Paulo, about 1.5 hours by car from Sao Paulo. And third, Brasilia Airport, which is federal capital. And then a few months later, there were 2 more airports conceded to private operators, Galeão in Rio and Confins in Minas Gerais. These 5 airports together, they are responsible for almost 65% of Brazilian air traffic. The 3 first concessions, the new operators are renovating the airports. They are ongoing. The renovation is a 24-hour work ongoing. If you go to each one of these airports now, you can see the new airport being built. And all of them are scheduled to be ready and ready to operation in May 19, which is 40 days prior to the beginning of the games. So we have very exciting times ahead of us, because of course any one of you which is in our industry knows what means to launch an airport and to begin the operations. We are quite confident that we are going to do this. We are quite confident in this new operators, and we are, as airlines, trying to do the best and giving our best efforts and professionals to cooperate with these new operators in order to receive all of the world in the best conditions we can for the games. Galeão in Rio and Confins in Belo Horizonte are under renovation, but the new operators, which are the guys from Germany and Switzerland in Belo Horizonte, and the guys from Singapore, Changi, in Galeão in Rio, they are going to be in charge just weeks before the game. So there are going to be some renovations, but there's not going to be a new airport waiting for you during the games. The other challenges we face are related with fuel prices. At an average, my colleagues from the European Association of Airlines told me that here you have fuel as something like 35% of our operational costs. We face 40% in Brazil. In US, it's something like 34 too. Some taxes, there is something that only in Brazil we have. There are provincial taxes on ADF, on fuel. And this is one of my big challenges. I have to, every day in the morning, I have to face this challenge, and we are working as crazy in order to reduce these taxes, because you pay these taxes if you fly domestically, but if you fly international, you don't pay. So This is something that remains from the 70s in Brazil. It's a long story, and to make it short, it's something that we are really involved in trying to reduce. And the biggest one, unfortunately, is in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo charges you on 25% as this local taxes on ADF. Well, it of course has an impact on the formula of how we calculate and how we organize the prices in Brazil. This is our second challenge. If you compare to another airports, you can have an idea of how fuel impacts on the price. So this is, in terms of our business, the big challenge is to reduce fuel prices in order to make domestic flights and domestic airlines more competitive in Brazil. This is the map that we think we have to expand the airports. You see that they are quite similar as the first map you saw. The idea is just to give you an idea of how we are going to expand. We put forward, there is the plan of the government, of the Brazilian government, to expand regional aviation inside the country. They put forward a list of 270 cities. From these 270, we show them then that 71 shall be the priority. Some of them, I like the airport of my home city. I came from a small city near the beach named Santos. It's about 1 hour by car from São Paulo. Became famous because of Pelé and now Neymar, which is playing Barcelona. And in this city we have an airport. Well, it's not, we don't have flights in the airport because it's a military area from our Air Force, but we included in the list as a place that with a small amount of money can become a regional airport. Situations like that, we have 70 more around the country, and they are absolutely able to be new spaces. And why this is important? Because this is a space for new providers. You know, the World Cup will call the attention of a lot of people for these regions. For instance, in this city, Santos, there are 2 teams already fixed that they're going to be there. I think there are Mexico and Costa Rica, I'm not sure. But I think for sure Mexico, and the other one I don't remember now. They are going to be there around this airport. Well, the other way of the challenge is about traffic control and the review of the routes as a consequence of this new airport environment. Our commitment is to achieve almost $36 billion in the next 8 years. We are really confident on the way economy can keep being conducted. As of course, if you had been reading the last figures, the strong economic development we had for the last 10 years is now a little bit slow. We are not growing as fast as we had been the last 10 years. But on the other hand, I was just making this small research at the internet prior to this conference, because this morning we were expecting the new unemployment tax rate to be published, and it was published 20 minutes ago, and it came down again to 5.4%. It's the lowest tax in more than 10 years. So we still have space to grow, you know, because even if we are not forecasting the same huge numbers we saw in the last decade, there's still an enormous space to grow because, of course, of the numbers of the country. Of course, government and the private sector has to work together in an industry like ours. I don't have to explain to you how does it work and why, but of course, and the issues we have to deal with are the same that we have to deal all over the world. I'm saying that because I've just had some meetings with the American Association of Airlines and the European Association of Airlines, and the issues are not that different. And talking by the games itself, the World Cup will be held in 12 different cities. And it makes this World Cup quite different of the previous ones. In one hand, we have the fact that in Brazil, about 70% of the passengers that we have in the airline, in the airplanes every day are corporate passengers. They are traveling because of their business or trade shows or congresses, events, and so on. About 30%, 28 to 30%, are traveling by other reasons, including tourism, leisure, visit your familiars, and so on. According to the figures we have from Germany, from South Africa, and from the Olympic Games in London, these corporate passengers, the majority of them just vanished during the Games. They don't travel during the Games. Why? Because Congress are postponed or anticipated. In a lot of cities, it's holiday. The businessman, he knows that's going to be, a little mess to be in the city A or B during the Games. So, and because the guy who travels motivated by his business, he can organize and schedule. He can organize the day and the hour he is going to be here and there. And this passenger is replaced, not 100%, but in a very good number, replaced by this passenger flying motivated by the Games. So, in one hand, we are expecting for less traffic that we have normally. In the other hand, Brazil is not, what you are going to face in Brazil is not what we saw in Germany or in South Africa, because it's quite hard to go from one city to another by car. Of course you can go, there are highways, you can easily move from one city to another. But imagine that the distances are like Lisbon to Moscow, to go from, for instance, Recife to Porto Alegre, and Porto Alegre is in the extreme south, but Recife is not the extreme north. After Recife, which is in the northeast, to arrive in Manaus, in the rainforest, you still have 2 hours flying in a 737 or Airbus 320, excuse me for the commercials. Or whatever. In all airlines, all aircrafts you represent here. I'll buy everyone. But in every plane. So this will be the airplane World Cup. So we can expect, first, a lot of people flying. 2, a customer that we are not used to receive, because people from countries that don't used to be visiting our country in a huge number are going to be there in a huge number. We are used to receive people from Argentina, from Europe, from US, but from Japan, from all over the world. But of course, as you are going far away from the country, a long-haul flight, somebody to fly from Dubai to Brazil, we have a straight flight now. Emirates fly straight from Dubai to Brazil. But we receive, 1,000 guys from Dubai per month, and probably are going to receive 15,000 in the game. So this is one of the challenges. Second, I think prices get out of the agenda since this new network was liberated. I'm aware that from the currently 77 foreign airlines flying, from them there was a huge request of extra flights, and I can tell you, we requested almost 2,050 or 2,100 flights, and 95% were authorized. We don't know yet what is going to happen with the requests from the foreign airlines, but according to what we hear and what we had been discussing with the guys from the Aviation Authority, I think that behavior is going to be the same. They tend to authorize the majority of the requests because everybody in this country is quite conscious about the fact that you need to have flights, you need to have connections by air, otherwise it would be impossible to have all the passengers, because we are not talking only about people, about fans following her national teams. We are talking about technicians, journalists, professionals, medical support. There are a lot of different demands from the games. One challenge that we still cannot control is, unfortunately, weather. No. Positive news, we have no snow at all. To don't tell you a lie, each 15 or 20 years in the extreme south of the country, we heard some news about snow. It's a big touristic attraction when it comes. People go as crazy to see snow. Oh, it's real, it really exists. But some wind gets lost from Argentina and arrives in the south of Brazil. But we don't have snow. We are not going to face a kind of closing airport because of that. But in some parts of the country, it's going to be winter. In the south region of the country is going to be winter. In winter in Brazil, it rains. We are in a tropical area. And sometimes in some airports, we can have problems because of the rain. And sometimes the rain can close an airport because of safety. A lot of renovations and new equipments are being organized, and like ILS, all of the ones you know, in order to prevent that. In Rio, in Santos Dumont, the domestic airport in Rio, they are already there, and in the last year, if I'm not precise with the figures, forgive me, but just to give you a general idea, we had in 2012, I think, 35 or 36 problems with rain in Rio. In 2013, it decreased for 50%, and we are facing that it's going to decrease even more in 2015. So there can be some difficulties because of that. It's the only one. And of course, the big challenge is the distance. You know, you must is not polite. You would be nice if you let your friends and guests or clients aware that you are not in Holland. No, the entire Holland. I love Holland. No, we had been there several times, but the entire Holland is 10%. Is like half of the city of Sao Paulo. The entire country. You know, so. It's hard. I remember I lived in Spain for a while. I lived in Barcelona, and I remember that my close friend in Barcelona once, one afternoon, we were having a beer after leaving the office, and he said that he really was impressed because he had this his trip in the countryside of Catalonia, and he told me, "Oh, you can drive your car by almost 2 hours and you see the orange farms." I said, well, it's quite important, I agree with you, but in my country you fly for 2 hours over oranges, you know? So this is quite new for a lot of Europeans. I'm not talking with the Russians, of course, but it's quite new for Europeans, and it's important to tell. I have been in the trade show industry. I used to work for Reed exhibitions, and we deal with a lot of tourist trade shows. And as Brazilian, I remember that sometimes people complain, oh, I went to your country, it's marvelous, I loved it, it's very nice, very warm, but I was 3 hours in a plane. I said, well, blame your travel agent, because he should tell you. So this is one important thing. Well, just to conclude, and people told me that they will tell you if I got rid of time, but to conclude, we are in a country that has these figures in 2020 and is facing those ones in 2020. And that's why I used to mention the World Cup and the Olympic Games as a theme and a pretext. You know, my country is a country of 513 years that Portuguese arrived. I don't know, maybe 6,000 years with civilization, but 500 years that they arrived. For about 300 years, we were a colony based in agriculture. Then we had more 140, 130 trying to get in the contemporary ages, but you can consider the country as a country that became industrialized and began to face the 20th century about the 60s of the last decade. But as a country that you can consider that is really developing, that facing his historical challenges as the extreme poverty, it's a very short story. We were again a democracy in 1988 with the new constitution, but only 14, 15 years after, in the last decade, we had the economical stability with the real, or our actual currency. And after the real, we had the new economic model that was led by the former President Lula, and created this new step the country is facing. Well, it was a huge work, it was a huge movement. I can tell stories for you till 3 o'clock in the morning without repeating anyone about how things moved, how things changed, how people improved their lives. But what I really would like to address you is the fact that we have still the double of challenges ahead of us. We are absolutely conscious that we are not living in a country which is a completed homework. It's a completed painting. We are going, we are moving, we are doing our jobs in the best way we can. But we know we are in the middle of the homework. We know that there is a space to improvement, there is space to grow. And what is one thing that really makes me feel better is to know that you have democracy, legal stability, and economical stability, so we are able to receive contributions, investments, and professionals from all over the world to take part in this job. We think that the World Cup is just the first step and the pretext to receive everything and everybody. Thank you for your attention.